cord. Maybe that's what it is.
At least among,
Worth
at
a
least
try.
if you're among your own peeps, we understand.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So anyway, if anybody needs that stuff, just email me and I'll get it to anybody that we can. We had a great meeting with Jim, Dr. Jim Porzelis last week or a couple weeks ago. And he talked about creating more confidence and all of our coping skills. And it was a fantastic meeting. It really was. It was very good. So loved that very much. So today we get the pleasure of having Dawn and Daran Landry with us. I'm not the most formal, as you guys will see. Dawn wrote the book Armored, and it is, I read a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you do. This book is an easy read, and I don't know if you can see, but I have marked it up like crazy. There are so many things in there. It's just a fantastic read. And I just really enjoyed it very much. So I'm going to read some things here. Today they're going to talk about their personal story, and then we can just do some question and answer. We can do some question and answer at the end. So Daran has been in consumer, small business, and commercial lending. He's with Rainstar Capital Group currently. One of the things that I really liked about his bio is he says he believes in earning people's business, and there's more to that, but he's very honest, forthcoming, just a great guy. I'm getting to know both Dawn and Daran fairly well over the last month or so, and they're just super people. So that comes from my heart. You'll see what kind of people they are. Daran is a stage 4 head and neck cancer survivor, and then he had his stroke in 2019. And so you'll hear more about that. Now he just turned 50, so everybody give him the benefit of the doubt. Right? Dawn is the best-selling author of the book Armored. She has a lot of business-to-business growth. She's a strategist for business-to-business. She's a speaker. She's a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach. I could go on and on. There's a ton of stuff, but suffice it to say that I'm very proud of these two, and I think you guys will enjoy them very much. So thank you guys so much for being here. The last quick thing I'm going to say is if everybody doesn't mind muting themselves until we get through their little, talk. They probably don't even, I didn't give them any agenda, so we'll see how it goes. And then we can come back in when they're done. How about that? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Why don't you tell them your background first?
No.
You want me to?
Yeah, you go ahead.
This is indicative of our relationship. He's just like, no, you do it. And so I always tried out every doctor and everything else, every dentist before he did it. And then that way he go, yeah, you go try it out. You be the guinea pig and then I'll go do it. So that's kind of how we have our relationship. Our relationship started in January. It made 25 years that we became friends. And then I don't remember meeting him for 6 months. And so we're both from South Louisiana. And I was in the ad agency business. He worked for a trade show design and marketing firm. And so I was his client for 3 years. And I didn't know this, but he had a crush on me all that time. And so then we started dating. And so that was 22 years ago. And then in May, it's going to be 17 years that we're married. So yeah, long time. And like Keith said, I have a strong business background. I have maternal instincts, no nurturing healthcare related background whatsoever. But I say that God has a funny sense of humor, and he gave me this man who has a lot of health issues to teach me how to be a better person. And so, and I've become a better person through everything that we've endured. He was, in 2002, you were 31 and we weren't even married yet. And he had something, he has had asthma since he was 6 weeks old. And he had a reaction to Singulair, the drug, and it caused something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which basically put him in the hospital, and he was in ICU for 5 days. And that was it was a really scary time, but really quick and like in and out, and we were done, and we kind of got back to our regular lives at that point. And then in 2009, at 38 years old, he was diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer. And so, and we live in Houston now. We've been in Houston since 2001. So he was treated at MD Anderson, thankfully, and had a tremendous treatment, but it was barbaric. I mean, he was surgery and then 6 weeks worth of chemo, 7 weeks worth of radiation, where he was going 5 days a week. And so, you know, life really brings you to your knees, and it teaches you a whole lot too. And so I have a strong faith, which got stronger during that battle. And I thought that that was the worst of it, quite honestly. And then in 2019, in November, so we've both, he in the banking industry, me in the commercial construction industry. I was a vice president with and doing business development with a commercial general contractor in Houston, and then started my own firm 4 years ago. And so we have a huge network in Houston. We are very, very blessed. While we don't have a lot of family here, we have a lot of people that are surrounding us in terms of having a lot of friends and folks that we are close to in the community. So that Saturday after Thanksgiving, we were going to have about 120 people come through our house. We were going to do an open house for the holidays. And so that Tuesday evening at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I had talked to him. I was going to pick up some supplies, and I was going to this happy hour with the gentleman that used to work for me. And about 4:30, talked to him at 3 o'clock. He was completely fine. About 4:30, my uncle who lives with us called me, and he said, "I'm putting Daran in the ambulance." And he started telling me kind of some of the symptoms that he was having, and it didn't register. In my brain, I just thought, is it really that bad to need an ambulance? And then I had no idea. And so I called him once I got to the car, met the ambulance at the hospital. And then I don't know how I beat the ambulance to the hospital, but I did. By the time I got there, talked to the neurosurgeon, and he was 100% paralyzed on his right side, couldn't even open his right eye, couldn't speak. What we later learned was and I'm kind of on this mission to really let people know that if you've had head and neck cancer, about the 8 to 10 year mark is when you need to be on the watch out, because this area from the radiation deteriorates your arteries. And so while he had worked out that morning and had been working out 6 days a week and was completely fine, eating skinless, boneless chicken breasts, to the point where he could cluck, it was a ticking time bomb for him. And so it was 100% blocked. And so luckily my uncle spotted it. The ambulance was at our house in 15 minutes. They got within the window to get the TPA in his system. And then he spent 4 hours in surgery. It was supposed to be a 1 hour surgery that ended up taking 4 hours because his carotid was completely blocked. And so we had no idea that that was a side effect of the radiation. 10 years before, he had already hit the 10-year mark of being cancer free. We didn't know. And so then it began the process of me trying to find other people that he had informally coached, kind of similar to you guys. You find one another in terms of mentoring each other and, talking about what works and what not. He did the same thing with other people with the same type of cancer. He informally coached them through it. So I really wanted to find those people that he had informally coached. So then that way I could let them know that they needed to go get their neck scan just in case they were, their systems were blocked. And so he spent 26 days in inpatient rehab, in ICU and inpatient rehab and whatnot. And then here he is today. So we got home December December 20th of 2019. And then he spent the better part of the first part of last year in occupational, physical, and speech therapy, and in the middle of a pandemic. And so, so my business, once we were spit out the other side of the stroke and back home, I, as a caregiver, I don't know, I know that you guys, you're here. And so surely you've had somebody that's had to walk this walk with you, whether it's a spouse or a child or somebody that loves you along the way. But as the caregiver, it's often a very lonely place to be. And so, in the lessons that I learned, actually I took back from his very first, his Guillain-Barré battle, but really during the cancer battle, I had to learn very strongly to let other people help us. And so, and that's not something that I'm really wired to do. And so it was in about halfway through the chemo that one of my uncle's really good friends, he was in LA at the time. She was still here in Houston. And his really good friend who had fought breast cancer called me up and she said, people are offering to help and you need to let them help you. They want to be part of your journey. Because I would say, oh, just pray for us. We just need prayers. We got this. And in reality, I needed help, and I didn't know how much I needed help until I really opened up and just let people do what they do best. And so that was an amazing experience, but I really needed it during the stroke battle. And so, it was very, very hard. And so, and I was not nice to myself, actually, in January of last year when we were on the other side of the stroke. I thought I could get back to work, have a 28-year career of just getting it done. And I was falling asleep in one of my client meetings. I was in a room with 20 people around a conference room table and caught myself falling asleep. And they were very nice and very generous and did not acknowledge me. But I got in my car and berated myself very strongly. And so, and it was then that I had to really create those coping mechanisms of what do you do whenever you do this. And so, February was okay. March, my business was going to be back at it. It was going to be fantastic. And then COVID hit. So needle across the record, it was nothing but time and space. And it gave me the opportunity to write Armored. And I really see it as a calling. The coaching that I did for Daran, the messages that I infused in him after the stroke was that he's here for a reason. I am convinced that he is here to serve as a testimony of God's goodness and also to be an inspiration to others that they can get through it. And because we had lots of people watching the journey on Facebook and seeing what we were going through, because every morning it was a call for prayers. It was somewhat therapeutic, but also we have a really big family back in Louisiana, and a way to keep everybody up to date is at 4:30 in the morning, I would update what was going on. And so during that time, I told him, I said, we need to write a book. We need to document this. It's going to be called In Sickness and in Health. And we're going to give both perspectives, the patient and the caregiver. And then as we got closer to writing the book, he's still walking the journey, and it's not fully functioning in terms of that getting to that space yet. Like he said, there's still some fogginess from last year and right after the stroke. And so we're documenting, and hopefully that's going to be part 2 of the book is to tell Daran's story.
I want you to talk about when Daran was in the hospital and I'm trying to think of the right word, Dawn. It's like I don't know if it was a call. I don't know how you got the word or what came of you to do this. And so I want you to explain a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. But Dawn would go to Daran's room and she put up posters and she did all this stuff that helped Daran to get more engaged sooner after his stroke. And I think, frankly, from my perspective, that has a lot to do with where he's at today. And Daran, you're not going to get out of this, buddy. You're going to do some talking with me. So just letting you know that.
So Keith, I'm a coach, right? And so I coach people on the professional side for a living. And what I said was that my professional skills my crisis management skills that I was trained in my 20s, working in the ad agency business on oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico as some of my first jobs, that trained me for all of the healthcare battles that Daran had. But in actuality, all of the professional stuff that I did, and it did, the personal stuff that I needed to walk through actually has helped me to be a better business professional also. And so the things that I did in walking with Daran, I learned in terms from a coaching standpoint on the professional side that I'm now applying personally. And so let me give you an example. So I know my top strengths. Before Daran had his stroke, we just for fun to make our marriage stronger. We have a dog down there, by the way. Our kids have fur and 4 legs. And so she's needy. Otherwise she'd just be crying.
She's crying every time I'm not touching her.
And so I knew Daran's strength. I knew my strength. I know how our strengths work together ultimately. And so for him, he has context. So he has to look back to look forward. And he also has significance in terms of he wants to leave a legacy and he wants to be remembered in a strong way. So knowing that he had those strengths, and you asked Keith, how did I know how to do that? I actually have some friends that asked me the same thing. I didn't. It was just me using the wiring that I already had and the experience that I already had to use it to do it. So I came home and I printed out all these pictures of our lives. And so at that point, he couldn't even move. He couldn't move anything on his right side. His eye was still, completely closed. But I knew that all he was doing was looking at this blank wall every day. So I took, freezer tape, because I didn't want anybody to fuss at me that I was taking the paint off the walls. So I was very intentional about getting freezer tape from the house. And I printed out, because we love to travel, we have a big family. I had all these pictures that I printed out all over the walls. But then I also reminded him of who he was, that he was a warrior, that he was a child of the Most High, that he's redeemed and forgiven. And I wrote all of those things out with a couple of Bible verses. But more importantly, like I said, look back to look forward. I documented the milestone for the day. And so I had blank sheets of paper that I popped up on the walls. And it was something, wiggling his index finger for the first time, using the walker to walk a certain distance, or even just getting out of the bed for the first time. And so I had the whole 26 days that he was in the hospital, I had that up on the wall so he could look back to look forward. Right.
Yeah.
And so I use a lot of those things professionally, or I did before, but I'm even using them even more now because I've just seen it and I've seen how it has worked for him especially. Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. I just wanted to share that because, it's just great stuff. And as you think about people who are in the hospital, and all of us think about, we all know people who've had strokes, and we're going to know more people. That's just the way it is. And as that happens, how can we help? This whole community, just so you guys know, Dawn and Daran, started a long time ago, and I won't call anybody out right now, but I usually do. But they started these stroke survivor meetings, and it's so we can all get better, right? And we can learn, and we can give that information to other people so that they don't have to experience some of what we've all had to experience, right? Absolutely. And I think that was a very unique and insightful thing that you did. And I read that in your book as well. And I wanted to call that out for sure. So great job on that, by the way.
Thank you. The other thing that I learned that's just as important, and it's a huge lesson for me as much as him, even from us without the stroke, is that little nugget of information that I got last January when we were, he was home, he was trying to recover, he was in therapy. And a friend of an architect, he's not even a friend, he's more of a colleague, acquaintance, volunteered his mom, who is a retired speech pathologist, to spend a couple hours with me on the phone for me to ask whatever questions that I had of her. And so, you know, we're get her done, you know, it's Texas term, get her done kind of folks. And so I gave her all of the history. I said, okay, 48 years old, here's this, all of this. So when are we going to get there? And she said, what? And I said, well, when's Daran going to be Daran again? And she said, oh, honey, you're looking at this all wrong. And she said, I don't know you. And she said, but I'm going to be very direct with you. And she said, you are setting yourself up for failure. And I was kind of, I sat back in my chair and was like, thankfully I wasn't on Zoom. I was just on a regular phone call. And she said, he will never be who he was before the stroke, just like you aren't who you were before the stroke. And then, and this is my terminology, I kind of, I don't remember exactly what she said, but I'll tell you what I heard. I heard her say, can you give him the freedom to be who he's going to be next? Mm-hmm. And it blew it wide open for me. And it took the strings off of everything. I have goosebumps even talking about it. I got off the phone. I went to him like, you have the freedom to be who you want to be next. And it was totally out of context. He had no idea what I was talking about at that time, but it really kind of, there's like we don't have a destination. It's just, we can create whoever we're going to be next. And you don't know what I don't want to speak for you. You don't know what you're going to be next, right?
Nope.
Well, I'd like to speak to this for another second. I apologize, all of you who are on here, but this hits home with me as well. Because even my wife and I were talking about this morning, believe it or not, this morning. Lane, who is in this group, started a book, and there's a lot of people in here who are writing in this book, and we're writing this book. Oh, nice. Anyway, oh, what was I saying that? Shoot, I apologize.
The next chapter.
Well, we were talking this. Oh, and one of the guys who is a writer for this book contacted my wife yesterday and was asking her questions and stuff. And so we were talking about that. And anyway, it kind of comes up because my wife doesn't usually say, I mean, I'm 10 years. Okay, I'm 10 years post-stroke. So the conversation doesn't come up all the time. Hey, you're a different guy, right? But it did this morning. And, there are changes that happen due to stroke. And we are different people. And I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I thank God every day for my stroke, frankly, because I've been through enough. I know where I came from, on and on it goes. Okay. And I'm sure that most of you would probably feel that way as well if you've been through it for a while now. At any rate, it's just a very good point that you brought up, and I just wanted to expand on it a little bit. I definitely want Daran, buddy, Daran and I get a chance to talk once in a while on the phone, and I enjoy it very much. He's a great guy. You look at him, he's a handsome dude. You guys are both handsome, but he worked out all the time. He's just a go-getter, and they both are. But Daran, just where are you at, buddy? I mean, how are you feeling about things? I know you work on stuff all the time and you're doing really good. Just expand on that a little bit for us.
Sure. Back before I had the stroke, I worked as a loan officer, putting together the right kind of loan products for people who own and operated fleeting. These were large boats that pushed oil around the Gulf here. Okay. And I did that, and I found a piece of the industry that was underserved in that, and that was going to work for Rainstar Capital Group. And I did. The only thing is I left a banking world to go work in a position where I was 100% commission, where and that was a tough thing to do. But then I turned the things around to where I was making commission this whole past year while I was out.
Wow.
I set up some of the uh, uh, boat owners. Every month they would borrow more money from non-traditional lenders, and it sends me, a little bit of money. And so I forget what I was, what was it you were asking me?
Bud, listen, you just relax. I just like hearing what's on your mind, your story. I think that you have made great progress. Of course, it's after 5 o'clock where they are. Keep that in mind as well, because I know I get tired in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and I think all of us probably do. And so, but I think yeah.
I didn't have the stroke, and same here, I do as well.
I just think you're doing fantastic given the kind of stroke and everything that happened, and you have a good outlook on life, right? Tell me about that a little bit. What are you seeing as goals for you coming up?
Well, all of the doctors, one of the first things they ask is, do you, how do we deal with your depression? And I'm going, I don't understand why you're asking that. I'm not depressed. They're like, yeah, but aren't you feeling this depression? Aren't you feeling that depression? I'm like, no, I'm not. But whatever, let's go ahead and go ahead and ask me the million questions. And it's like my answer to them, I'm not telling them, I guess, what they're typically used to hearing when they question someone who is recovering from a stroke.
Yeah.
They're just used to people that kind of wallow in their own misery. I don't do that.
But part of it is because you have some of the side effects from the stroke in terms of not being able to sleep. And so they were trying to get to the bottom of that too.
They were trying to get that, that's just, and you, part of what you hit on me, it's late, and yes, I'm getting tired, but yet if I go and I lay down, I don't fall asleep. Mm-hmm. It's weird that I deal with this, these different things.
Let me just give Lanae the mic for a second here, because she really came across a study, and she's done a fabulous job. Lanae, just take that away, would you please?
Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much. I am on a personal mission to awake the medical community to testing everybody for sleep apnea. And 50% of the stroke patients have sleep apnea. Wow. And they don't know it. Mm-hmm. Is the problem, because we're always so tired. They ask you, how do you sleep? Well, we're exhausted. Mm-hmm. So we say, oh, we sleep okay because we're tired. I found out that I have severe sleep apnea, and I know some of you have heard this. I'll make it really quick. Once I have been treated for that, I sleep so different at night. My energy, without exaggeration, is increased 100%.
Wow.
So you have to ask for a sleep test, and your insurance covers it. You very well might find you will sleep so different. So this weekend I did some research, and I found a doctor in Massachusetts at UMass who is a neurologist with a sleep specialty.
Oh,
And I think we should have her. Maybe I can get her to speak to our group.
Yeah,
And because I absolutely know that not every stroke patient has sleep apnea, but I heard from the pulmonologist more than 50% do.
mhm,
And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, doesn't matter what age you are.
yeah.
So enough of my little sleep apnea story, but I would encourage everybody, please ask your primary care. Tell them that 50% of the stroke patients have sleep apnea, and
And
you want to test to see if you are one of them.
and thank you for sharing that, Lana. Don't apologize for that, because that's important stuff. And we appreciate it very much. Kim, did you have, your mic is off, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
Daran, I'd like to also say that, when you have faith, and what I've found, and how you frame your recovery, I've had 6 years since my stroke. I lost the left side of my body, and I haven't had one day of depression. I have a very strong faith in God. I meditate over 30 years of my life. I'm a coach. I have an understanding of, just certain principles that I always try to give the people in the stroke group, because we don't have to, just because we have an event that comes to our lives that throws our lives, it doesn't mean that we have to suffer,
Yes.
Suffering is something that we do not have to do. And I think that if we do suffer, it's okay too, but we have to identify the suffering, and we can find a way to turn it around. So there is no shame if you don't get depressed behind having a stroke.
Yeah.
I'm extremely grateful for my life,
that's wonderful.
right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and you wake up with a purpose every day too, right? Talk about
Yes.
Every day he has something on his agenda that he's doing, some project around the house that he's working on.
Yeah. It's, we talked about Rainstar Capital. The guy is very understanding, and he sits back and he lets me work on some stuff. So every morning I wake up and I have a different project I'm working on around the house. So some of it's very important.
Important.
Yeah, like I'm climbing high on the ladder to do things.
Some of it you shouldn't be doing.
I know,
sometimes
I know.
too. Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
You see, she's going to open this door and look down the hallway and see a big ladder that I was.
Yeah, we have to go and remind him that he's not who he was. And it's good he has ambitious, but sometimes he gets us a little nervous too. Like when he tried to climb on the roof last year.
Hey.
Yeah.
You guys are great. I appreciate you guys. Okay.
So the point is, Keith, is that, even since the beginning, he's like a super achiever kind of guy. And so he's not only the spark, but he's the fuel to get things done. And so he always woke up with something to do. It could be as simple as, oh, our house is 8 years old and it's moved around, so we have cracks in the house. So he's walking around with a caulking gun, caulking everything that has a little crack. Things that you need to have done that most of us, when we work full time, we don't have the chance to do. And he's just doing all of these little projects to keep him going and motivating as long as he has the energy. And so he does it. Usually a task would take him, a day or a weekend or whatever else. Sometimes it goes weeks, but he's doing a little bit incrementally at a time as his stamina is allowing for it. And
That's
his
awesome.
Mhm.
Darren, how are you at doing dishes, buddy?
Oh, that's easy. You walk up, open up the dishwasher, and you put stuff in it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
You just put a dish in and you're done.
Piece of cake.
That's it.
Hey, who here has questions? Anybody have some questions? Joyce, did you? Unmute yourself. You got to unmute.
It goes.
You're unmuted, Joyce.
It's
Do you want to
Joyce.
talk, honey?
I will.
She's still muted.
I would like to say something while she's muted. You guys also have a desire to help other people. That's another way to keep our happiness and our joy, that we're thinking about other people. We have our stroke, so how can we help somebody else?
Absolutely.
And it seems like you've done that all along. And that really, I'm getting chills when I say that, that is so important. That is what makes us happy inside, is when we reach out and help another human being. So, and you guys are doing that, and you've been doing it.
Yeah. Kim,
So
I'm glad you
beautiful.
thank you so much. I'm so glad that you said that. People have asked me in terms of documenting his stroke journey on Facebook and then putting in the book, how does Daran feel about that? And he had first while he couldn't, whenever he was right after the stroke in the hospital, he couldn't see what I was putting on Facebook. He did have he was with me the entire journey of writing the book and had first right of refusal on everything. But I was only living out what he had already done in his cancer battle. So Facebook was really, really new during his cancer battle. And the very first time that he went to get his chemo treatment, you had to pack a bag. It was 15 hours. They needed to test all of the different chemo drugs to make sure he didn't have a reaction and whatnot. So that was the days before our phones were actually a camera also. So you had to pack a different camera, for that. And so they had him all hooked up to 3 different types of chemo. And he said, reach into the bag and grab the camera. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I want to document this. I want to document this to put it all on Facebook to help other people. And me of little faith, complete transparency here. My throat was right here and I took a big gulp, and in my head, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with those photos if he doesn't survive? But you can't you can't vocalize that. You stay positive for your patient, right? And so every week I would take pictures of him. And I'm so glad we did it now, because he used that photo diary in his coaching of other cancer patients to get them to their other side of it. He had it all documented out. And so when I was doing that, when I was capturing everything for him after the stroke from a Facebook standpoint, I just knew that I was just carrying out what he had already created, because I know that he's going to help other people whenever he can.
Awesome.
And I just want to tell you, I documented my first 5 years and I videotaped it and I put it all together, and I'd love to send it to you. So you'll see, I mean, it's really a great thing to document, because it's something that can help somebody else. Because you think in the beginning that maybe you're not going to get better. And when you see how much you can really grow and get better, I think it's really inspirational to other people.
Fantastic.
I wish I had done that, Kim. I wish I have some pictures, but I wish, being 16 months out now, I wish I had documented like a photo a day or something, you know, I didn't even think about it just because I was going through the motions, and no one
Yes.
really mentioned it until the last couple months. And
Alicia, start now.
I was too busy.
Start
Start
now. honey.
now. Okay.
Start now.
I
I
think-
grew so much between year 3 and 4. Oh my gosh. You just don't even realize, guys, when they talk about, and Lanae and I have talked, and Keith, we all talk about those little things. You just move a finger, you just do it. All of those start adding up, you guys, and it is amazing, right, Lanae? How much we grow. So please start doing it right now, Alicia. You will
Okay.
be so happy. Doesn't matter about those 16.
I just
Yeah.
feel like I made so much progress in that time. So yeah, you're right. But the little things are, you know, the things that I'm not most likely not going to notice without some sort of documentation.
Yes.
Okay, Joyce, did you still have a question? We can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, and Ramona, would you put your
We're not
message?
hearing you, Joyce. I'm sorry.
Did you
Yeah,
want
her
me to,
mute
do you want
isn't
me to just
on.
read it? I guess I could read that if you'd like. I was just sharing that being a reporter was really helpful to me because
I lost her.
Yeah. She froze.
Yeah, I lost her too.
Keith, I'm
this it really helped me to feel like I was Could you hear that?
No, we didn't hear you, Ramona. You cut out. Sorry. You froze.
Okay.
It looks like you're okay now, though.
Okay, I can try again.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, what I was saying is I had just retired from the school district. And only 3 months after I retired, I had my stroke, and I had already started to be a reporter for the paper, which is something I had done in the past. And so I was able to keep that, and it was really a blessing because it really helped me feel like I was contributing to my community and staying connected. It helped me stay connected.
So which community are you in now?
I am in Prineville, Oregon, which
great.
is right in the middle of Oregon,
Yeah.
not very far from where Steve lives. And I work for a small paper. It's not a very large paper, but it's really fulfilling because, you know, one of the first things I wanted to do after my stroke was to make sure I could still write. And that was really important to me. So.
Awesome. I want to interject here just for a quick second because, you know, I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm going to show you one of the pictures. There's Daran, one of his pictures when he was having his chemotherapy. Also, I wanted to just make a point here. Ramona, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I felt some emotion when you were talking. And I feel like, you know, in the beginning, especially shortly after your stroke, we can't control those emotions. You know, I would go into my business meetings. I had a pretty large business, and I'd sit with the owners of this business, and tears would flow down my face because I couldn't communicate. And so here you're safe. Okay, everybody here has gone through it. And I love what you said, and I love everybody in their voices, and it's very important. So I just wanted you to know that.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I found that I was able to communicate through my words, but I really struggled with my communication when I was talking to people, but I could still communicate well through my writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you doing today? Are you you're still writing for the paper?
I am. I only work part-time, but the great thing is I can work from home as I need to. And so through the pandemic, it didn't keep me from being able to do my work. And as I got better, I found myself wanting to do more and more in-person interviews. And that was really therapeutic.
Hmm.
It's interesting how many writers we have. Joyce, aren't you a writer?
Mm.
Kim, of course, is certainly a writer. It's very interesting. All these creative people.
Joyce also asked her question in the chat.
Oh, why am I not seeing that chat? Oh, sorry,
It
Joyce.
popped up.
Okay. So let's see. Being a reporter has helped me to feel like I'm contributing to my community and keeps my brain active. It kept me connected also through the pandemic. Very good. And to Lanae and everybody else, do you know why more than 50% of stroke survivors have sleep apnea?
Let me see if I can answer that really quick. Obviously, I'm not a medical person. Some people had sleep apnea before, but obviously a stroke changes all of our breathing and throat muscles. So I believe that is certainly a factor to it. And stay tuned because I think I'm on a path to get some really, really interesting information for all of us on this whole topic. So I will get you more information, Joyce, but I am absolutely convinced it's really changed my life. So we'll have some more speakers on apnea.
So,
So,
Lana,
Lanae,
may I add to that? Oh, I'm sorry. Was somebody else about to talk?
oh, it's me, Steve. I was just going to say, Lanae, I'm one of those people who went ahead and did this sleep apnea before I had my stroke. So I kind of put them in reverse order. And I'm pretty familiar with sleep apnea, and there are professionals right here in Bend
Yeah.
who know a lot about that and who would be great resources. Usually they're pulmonologists,
Mhm.
but I don't think they have to be a pulmonologist to be a sleep doctor. So if you want to talk to me at some other time, I can maybe tell you a name of a doctor or two.
Well, I would love to do that. And the other thing I'll mention, since we're kind of talking about apnea, is I went on this journey to figure out if stroke patients were diagnosed correctly right after their strokes, would that, and they had sleep apnea, would that improve their stroke recovery?
Hmm.
There's very few medical studies done. I have 2 of them, and all the indication are absolutely that you would have better recovery
Wow.
if you had apnea and were treated in that first few months or year.
Hmm.
So I will continue to provide more information on sleep apnea. And Steve, I'll connect with you.
Okay.
So Lana, just to let you know, and this is a to be continued kind of thing also, because Daran had the in-house sleep apnea study done in December, and the results came back that he was fine, but he's still not sleeping well. So we actually have gone in January to a sleep doctor in the Texas Medical Center who actually said you can get a lot of false positives with those in-house kind of studies. So they want him to go to one of those sleep centers, and we're waiting on that until he has the vaccine. Because it's just, in my opinion, we just want to hang on just until we're on a little bit further down in terms of the vaccine. But at any rate, just to let you know, don't stop there if your sleep apnea in-home study is not the result that you want, because it may not necessarily be, you might get a false negative.
Very good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
I need to go. Thank you all very much. It was a
Thanks,
wonderful
Kim.
talk.
Oh, we didn't
Okay.
even, let's stay on for those who haven't given an update, Keith, because I know we haven't seen a few of these people. I'd love to hear a little bit about what they're doing before everybody goes.
Yeah. Real quick, I just wanted to, before I forget, thank you, Alicia, for noticing the chat sign. I'm a wonderful host, just so you guys know. I
We-
miss the
we
last. Anyway, yeah. So, are you guys okay? Dawn and Daran, if let me have Ramona speak a little bit about her story a little bit. Just maybe take 3 minutes or so, Ramona, and
Okay. So I worked for the school district for 24 years. Started out as a classified employee in technology, and then I taught for 10 years. I taught video production, law enforcement, and yearbook for 10 years. And then I got laid off in 2009, and I went ahead, and that's how I ended up in the paper the first time. So I did that full time for 4 years, and I enjoyed that a lot, but it was kind of I was like the starving reporter, I wasn't making enough money. And so I knew that I needed to go back to the school to retire with PERS. So I found a job as a youth transition specialist, as Steve alluded to earlier. And I did that for 7 years and enjoyed it a lot. And I started having some health problems. My mom had alpha-1 antitrypsin, which I have one of the genes to that. And they still don't know if there was a connection. I retired a year and a half ago. 3 months later, I had my stroke. To this day, they don't know why. They've done every test in the world. I'm sure all of you can relate to that, being tested, every test you can think of. My recovery, I think, was kind of rough the first few months. My right side was affected, but they gave me TPA, and I did respond very well to that. I was really lucky that our small hospital had that on hand, and then we had a doctor who knew how to use it, and that I didn't have a bad reaction. I was only in the hospital for a month or 4 days, but it did affect my mental clarity significantly for the first few months. And, I didn't realize how much it was affecting me until people would make comments like, oh, you're so much better, and I'm sure you've all probably heard that at some point. It's like, better than what? You wonder, okay, what was it like before? So as a reporter, that was challenging. I think one of the things that I really noticed was that people would make weird comments and say things that as soon as they knew I had a stroke, they treated me differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of stigma surrounding people having strokes. I'd be really interested in knowing how many other people have dealt with that and have, encountered that attitude and that stigma. So at this point, I'm just, trying to get, more active all the time. My stamina was a challenge, trying to have, stamina. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of my story.
Are you okay with sharing your email with me, Ramona?
Sure. I can send that in a message over here if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. I want to follow up with you if that's okay.
Sure.
I would too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Keith, I think Ramona really hit on something that we could have a good discussion about at one of our stroke groups.
Mhm.
And really that is, the whole topic, do people treat us different? But what can we do to make them more comfortable being around us? I think that's a fascinating topic. And I think we all have different ways of probably coping with that.
Yeah, and I definitely do. I'll be honest, but you probably don't want to hear about that right now. So we'll move into that. I think that's a good topic, Lonnie. Thank you.
So Keith, may I add, like, from an outsider's perspective, an outsider close by perspective, it is fascinating to watch how people respond, especially in the early days, to someone who cannot speak, right? And so I speak for a living and I write blog posts for a living. And so I wrote this blog post, and now I've created a presentation about effective communications that I've learned as an outpour of my husband's stroke. And I really classify people with, and it's whether it's talking to someone who's had a stroke or just talking to in general. There are 3 classifications of people. There are people that talk at you, and so that you almost see them. They're not comfortable with that space that a stroke patient needs to get to the word. It took me a little bit of time because, you know, if you're an impatient person that's just ready to go, you're not comfortable with it. So they either talk at, or they have, you know, the condescendings that talk to you like you're a 4-year-old, right? And I'm like, my 48-year-old husband is in there. You don't have to talk to him like he's 4 years old, you know? Or the third type of person, I call them the relaxeds, is and a lot of times it was really surprising to me. It was Daran's friends that were millennials that were in their early to mid 30s that would just come and sit at and 5 days after the stroke, he couldn't get to even 1 or 2 words, and he was struggling. You saw him struggling and kind of getting frustrated, and they would just sit back and go, dude, I'm here. I am here. You, however long it takes. And I just saw him immediately just completely get comfortable with them. And the conversation was a whole lot more flowy because of it. And so I just think that it's an observation in people and people in general in terms of how they treat other people specifically.
Absolutely. The other thing, and I am going to add to that just a little bit, if I can, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we give people a lot more credit for judging us than they deserve. And we're all guilty of it. We all think about ourselves more often than other people. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just reality. And so one of the things that I had to learn, you know, going through the grocery store, whatever, I mean, you can't tell I had a stroke. Look at Daran. You cannot tell if you saw him walking down the street. And there's many of us in that same boat. And yet we don't communicate like we'd like, right? And so people can judge, and you can hear people say things, maybe even when you're walking away or whatever. That's what happened to me. And it took me a little while, but then I remembered, you know what? Those people are thinking about themselves 5 seconds later. You know, they're not worried about, you know, they may have made a remark, but they won't remember me from nobody. And that's how I coped with that. So
very good.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
It's easier with people that aren't as close to you, right? When it's people that are close to you, it's a lot, I would imagine, I can empathize or maybe even sympathize that it has to be a lot more challenging.
Well, the other thing is, you know, I used to say I've lost friends, but really I don't see it in that viewpoint anymore. Now the way I look at it is they struggled to communicate with me. They, you know, things changed. I was a different person. And so some of the friends that I had, you know, they quit coming around. They quit talking. And Daran and I talked about this actually. And, you know, what happens is they just, they don't relate to that, and they aren't comfortable with themselves enough to be able to, you know, bridge that gap. And so that's okay.
Yep.
Well, the the word that Ramona used was a stigma. And that's a huge topic, but I think it's basically prejudging people. And it's that we have in our mind what people are going to be like or what they're like, depending on what you see, what you hear, whatever, without really giving it a chance. And Keith, when you said you had an answer but didn't want to say what it was, I probably had that same answer in my brain too, because it makes you mad. It kind of makes you mad to be stigmatized.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like you said, Keith, I think we all do it. I think we all stigmatize, we all prejudge. And as survivors, I think our goal could be to help people through it without trying to get too mad at them, because after all, don't we do it ourselves?
Yes.
That's the thing, right?
Yes.
So Ramona and I worked with these kids that had all different kinds of disabilities, some of which you could see and some of which you couldn't. And stroke is usually something you can't see, but that's not always true. And so they always had to deal with stigma. And as a high schooler, that is really tough. Is that right, Ramona? Are you still there?
Yes, and I absolutely was thinking of that, just as you said that, I was thinking about the fact that I, had dealt with those kids and I had heard them talk about, how people would treat them, especially the ones that had invisible disabilities. And often, as soon as they would tell somebody that they had this, challenge in learning, they would treat them differently. And I always thought that I understood, but it's amazing. You don't understand that fully until you experienced it.
That is so true, Ramona.
Yeah.
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 I hate to interrupt, but I have to leave for physical therapy, so I've got to go. I wish
Thanks,
I could
Alicia.
stay.
Great
Thanks,
seeing you.
Alicia.
Bye, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
I think we should probably go ahead and wrap
Steve
this up.
Boatwright, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you too.
I'm just seeing you. I want to get an update on you. Maybe not now, but let's connect.
Okay.
You got any concerts coming up?
No, there's still now. Got a lot canceled though, but
Maybe this summer.
I hope so. We'll see what happens.
Maybe we could have an SAO one.
Yeah, possibly. Raise some money.
Yeah.
Steve is a musician and sings. For
Yeah,
those
and
of you who don't know.
he has quite a background. You would know the bands that he played for. I'm not joking. It's incredible. Yeah. More on that later.
I have an uncle named Uncle Keith that was also he has that sort of thing that Steve has. He's played with multiple people.
Yeah.
He's in his 60s, and you probably know some of the people he.
Yeah. Probably. I'm 70, so
yeah.
I was all in the 60s, mid 60s on up. Yeah.
Yeah. And Keith is
He has to be at least 65, huh?
yeah, he's about 65.
Yeah.
He's been playing since the early 70s.
Yeah.
And like Toto and Jefferson Starship and some of those.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
I spent 180, 200 days a year on the road for years with just about everybody.
Who did you play with, Steve?
Oh my gosh. A list. I mean, Santana, Buffalo Springfield, Chuck Berry, Janis Joplin. Many others. Yeah. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Are you a writer also? Have you captured all of that?
I tried to, yeah, I wrote a little something here and there, but just mainly for my grandkids and the family so that they, you know, I cut out a lot of the 60s stuff so the kids would, you know that grandpa was a good boy.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
You're right, Keith.
But going back to what we were talking about, it was an interesting lifestyle because although I performed in front of millions of people, literally, now that I'm 8 years into my stroke, and I've never really felt, I'm paralyzed partially on my right side, walk with a cane, and but I never really let people bother me about that. It's just something that I grew up in an interesting environment for years and years, and I learned to shrug a lot of things off. So that's kind of my defense mechanism, is just, so what, you know, and move on.
You're still here.
Yeah. So
Straight at
Jock, before we go,
Yeah.
I want to hear what's happening with Jock and Karen.
Well,
You're muted, bud.
There, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm, as the new kid on the block, I'm still trying to figure out what in the heck happened to me. So,
so are we.
yeah, it was in November when I had my stroke, and I'm just thankful that I've recovered as well as I have been able to. I still have the same problems that everybody else does, problems sleeping, problems doing certain things, problems remembering things, saying the wrong word at the wrong time, or they get caught on my tongue and I can't get them out there. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just thanking God that I'm still here, and there's still things I can do and reach out to other people. And I even tried today to have coffee with Keith, and we somehow start connection.
Yeah, we did.
But that's, I don't
Well,
know
you
what
look
else to say.
great.
Well,
You
thank
really
you.
look good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
My therapist works me to death. I thought they were going to kill me last Friday. I worked so hard that I could hardly walk Saturday.
That's great.
But you guys have been through the same stuff, so you know what it's like. And you've been at it longer than I have. Mine started, like I said, in November. So I'm a newbie on the block.
Yeah.
There's a few things that have been said here today that are kind of an underlying theme, really, frankly. You know, we've heard a lot about God, and listen, I look around this room right now, and most of you are, I don't want to say the wrong word, but you're true believers, okay? And that gives you the strength to keep moving on, and because you have that belief, it's a pull for you. You feel it, you know it, and I'm just proud of all of you guys. I can't even say so.
Keith, you're just doing an amazing job with the dedication to the support groups. And I know you put so much time in on it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. It's not about me though. And thank you, Lonnie. You guys are all awesome. And I appreciate every one of you. Thank you guys, Daran and Dawn, so much.
Yeah. Ramona, thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us again.
Yeah, and Ramona, please do the same.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, we
And
want to have
Daran
you
and
back.
Dawn, anytime, we'd love to have you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I actually, it's so funny because Keith and I met on Instagram in the fall, and Daran, just because just kind of how he was coming out and COVID hitting and everything, he never connected with the stroke survivor group here in Houston. But he and Keith have connected. And so Keith, I just want to say thank you so much for your investment, because it actually, I can tell when Daran talks to you, it makes him, yeah, I'm gonna put him on, so he's gonna be embarrassed, but it's, it makes him feel good, and so it's good that you guys have one another. That's the kind of the underlying thing that I wanted to say. And as someone who has never had a stroke, but has walked next, and never had cancer, but has walked the closest that you possibly can to it, I just keep going. I empathize, and I'm amazed and astounded, and just keep going.
Thank you guys.
Right?
Thank you. Real quick, next meeting, we have Michael Irwin, who's a stroke survivor as well. And he's with the Believe Stroke Foundation. And he's going to speak with us. So just so you guys all know that. And then Lonnie and I've talked a little bit. I've got quite a few people lined up, but we're going to take a break here pretty quick, so we can all just visit and enjoy one another. Daran, you're welcome. And Dawn, you guys are welcome anytime. Please come back. Ramona, of course. Joyce, thank you for coming too. And Steve.
Yeah,
Van
very
Houten
much.
And Steve. And then I just lost your last name. Anyway, appreciate you guys, all of you, very, very much. And Jock.
Keith, while we have just a minute, I would like to ask the group a question. And this is something that Keith and I have talked about. My question is, would you guys be interested in something that might be a lecture series, stroke related, maybe a 20-minute talk that's pretty much just stroke related? And then would you also be interested in a separate support group? I've been thinking that we should maybe develop some educational kind of video meetings. And for those that just wanted those, I think we might be able to then put them on our new website being Stroke Awareness Oregon. And so we love having guest speakers like today. You guys were fabulous, but we also like the camaraderie of the stories and the journey. And so I'm really interested in what would you guys like? Do you think you would be interested in just an educational kind of session that really is just about, it's like sleep apnea. Let's use that for an example.
Yeah.
And then maybe have more time at another time. So it would really be 2 meetings, but you could just dial in if you want, and then have more of the support group camaraderie.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, the other thing is now we're getting to where we can record. Well, we always could, but we didn't. But now we're recording every one of these and sending it out, and I think that's helpful too, because let's face it, not everybody can make every meeting, and so it's good for them to still be able to hear what we talk about.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all helps.
Yeah. Lonnie, you and I'll talk some more about all that too.
That sounds great, Keith.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll pull a couple of you guys in. And Ramon, I'm really interested in talking to you about the services that are needed in Prineville.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure that we can use some resources here. I know I have not found any kind of a stroke support group here locally at all.
Well, yeah, so let's talk offline about that too. There is not one in Prineville, but maybe when COVID opens up, we could create one under the SAO umbrella.
That would be awesome. Could you include your email in the comments?
I don't know how. I need your technical advice.
Well, here, let me just real quick. Let me send Lene your email. Is that okay, Ramona?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then I'll just
absolutely.
reach out to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
yeah,
Joyce,
that would be fine.
Joyce, thank you for that link. I'll put it in the post too.
Yes.
So, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. I see it's dark in Texas.
And I think Joyce is in San Francisco at the Bay Bridge.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. Yeah, y'all are about to lose Darren. I was just telling him if he needed to go and eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right,
Thank
you guys, great.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you guys. Have a great one. Talk soon, everybody.
Great job, Keith. Thanks.
Thank
Y'all be
you.
safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.